So you're thinking they're more or less they're probably not going to be able to put it through as a bill. They might attach it to something else to try to sneak it through.
Well, we don't know. I mean, what we know is that it once previously passed the United States House of Representatives. It's never passed the U.S. Senate, although it has been repeatedly introduced. And yes, there is a real fear that they may try to attach this to other legislation. And the head of the AFL-CIO nationally has said that his backup strategy to get this thing into law, Barack Obama has said he would sign it into law if it gets to his desk. So we know that there are very powerful special interests in Washington, D.C. that are desperately trying to get this passed. And we want the people of Kentucky to know that they cannot be complacent on this issue. It's a key issue. It affects the economy. It affects small businesses. It affects large businesses. And we really must remain vigilant on this if we want to see our economy recover. We can't have the federal government passing these sorts of job-killing laws if we want our economy to fully recover.
I have two questions.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me get in just for a second, Dave. I had three questions for you. One relating to Walmart and those type companies in the city and in the Commonwealth as a whole. What kind of unionization in the private sector would you see? Like what percentage, what amount would you see, whether it be grocers or whether it be something? Well, Kroger's unionized, but a place like Walmart that is not unionized, what would be the effects of that?
Well, it's a good question, and I don't know the answer. I think what we know is this law would make it much, much easier for unions to form a union inside of any business, large or small, because they're taking away the secret ballot. Under this law, workers, in order to form a union, all the union bosses would have to do is collect enough of these cards while looking over people's shoulders, and then the union would be formed. Under the current rules, they not only have to collect the cards, but then the cards trigger the secret ballot election, and then all the workers get to decide in private whether they want to be in a union. This takes away that secret ballot and just leaves the card check provision. And we know from experience that these labor bosses can pressure these workers into signing these cards. And so whether your business is large or small, our anticipation is if this law passes, they'll be in your office trying to unionize your business, and they'll be using this card check provision to pressure the workers into doing it. And we don't think these sorts of tactics fit within our American system of democracy. I mean, you know, our country is sort of built on the fundamental principle that people get to choose privately what kind of government they want, what sort of systems they want in their lives. This takes that away. We think it's fundamentally un-American.
Well, of course, a few years ago, we didn't realize that the government was going to be taking over banks and GM and Chrysler. So anything's possible, isn't it?
Sure. I mean, that's a great point. Anything can happen if you don't remain vigilant. And so what we're educating the public about in Kentucky is even though a law has never passed, in this case it's never passed, it's come close, but it's never passed, even though it may seem like it's not possible, believe me, it's very possible. You have a lot of people in Washington, D.C. who seek to pass the Employee Free Choice or Forced Choice Act into law. Some of them are in Congress. Some of them are very powerful special interests in the forms of the big labor bosses. And we know they do wield a lot of influence in Washington. And so the people in Kentucky need to know this. These things are still occurring. People are still pushing for this stuff. Even though it hasn't happened yet, it has not dampened their desire to see this law go into effect. They feel like they've invested heavily in some of the folks who are now in power in Washington, and they're looking to impose their agenda on the entirety of the American people, and we think it's a bad idea. So we're doing a lot of public education efforts. We're really trying to let people know where this thing is, what could happen, and I can tell you from personal experience, the more people we talk to, the more radio shows like this one that I do, the more information that we disseminate, the more people come to support our coalition, they sign the petition, they engage because they realize right off the bat this is terrible public policy.
Now, Scott, I worked for Americans for Tax Reform for a long time. Is this group going to be a national organization, or is this based in Kentucky alone? Or
we are a project of the Workforce Fairness Institute, which can be found on the internet at workforcefairness.com. Similar coalitions are popping up around the country. We saw one pop up in Arkansas earlier this year. We saw one recently pop up in Nevada. So these kinds of grassroots coalitions are popping up around the country, and they are projects of our national group, the Workforce Fairness Institute, which again can be found on the internet at workforcefairness.com.
Would you say that did your group have anything in helping Blanche squeeze out her primary in Arkansas? Did you guys have any effect on that? Because she definitely held on with that.
Sure. I should say that the Workforce Fairness Institute and the Coalition to Protect Kentucky Jobs are organized as 501c6 nonprofit entities, and that means that we cannot support, endorse, or oppose any candidate for public office. What we can do is educate the public. We can tell the public about legislation that we think is good or bad. We can tell the public where federal candidates stand on these matters. And
like
so
you can give them a grade, or like senator was got a B or 90% or something like that.
Well, we can report. What we can do is report the facts, which is and the way we do that in most cases is we look at three things. We look at the answers to our questionnaire, and at our website, protectkentuckyjobs.com, you can download the questionnaire that we sent to all federal candidates in Kentucky. And it's seven very simple questions, asking how you feel about card check, about forced binding arbitration, about the bill, would you support it being attached to other legislation. They're very simple questions. There's no trickery here. But we sent this questionnaire out to everybody, and we asked for responses. So we're looking at those answers as they come in. Number two, we are looking at what candidates say publicly to the news media and in front of groups, and we're monitoring their comments on this law, and we're making those things public. And number three, we're looking at vote history. People who are already in office, do they have a history of opposing this kind of legislation that we consider to be job killing? And so what we're going to do is take the facts, what people have said, the answers to the questions, and any vote history they have, and we're going to just simply report the facts to the public and let them make up their minds about what to do with that information.
I wanted to get in here just for a second. This is Clint Hardy, the co-host. Our third co-host, Matt, you're on the line, so hold on just a second. I've got two other questions, but I kind of wanted to have a follow-up for covering the candidate questionnaire here. And I just wanted to read some of the list. My follow-up is, have you had any of the candidates respond as of yet, whether it be for representative or U.S. Senate race, you don't feel comfortable to release those results yet?
We have had several responses. We're going to be releasing those in the next few days, so I'm not going to get ahead of my own release. But I can tell you we've had several responses, and some have been supportive of where our coalition stands, and some have been in opposition to where our coalition stands. So we've gotten several responses. We've also done a lot of research on public statements and voting history, so we're going to be releasing all of that this week. Before you asked me your second follow-up, I did want to go back to the Arkansas example. The coalition was active in Arkansas. Of course, as I said, we don't support, endorse, or oppose any candidate for public office. But what I can tell you is that the labor unions in Arkansas in that Democrat runoff did spend about $10 million to try to defeat the incumbent senator, Democrat Blanche Lincoln. And, of course, she narrowly survived her primary. But she had come out against the Employee Forced Choice Act, and so the labor unions put a target on her back, and they took aim at her with a $10 million expenditure. They came up short, but it was all over this issue. It was all over the fact that Blanche Lincoln had decided to do the right thing and oppose EFCA, EFCA, and the labor unions did not like it, and so they spent $10 million trying to get rid of her in Arkansas, and she was able to hang on and win. But this issue was central in that race, and it was all around the issue of jobs. Does this law cost Arkansas jobs? The answer in most voters' minds is yes, it does. Blanche Lincoln wound up on the right side of the issue and on the right side of the people of Arkansas.